everyone, I'm Linda Reimer, one of the librarians at the Southeast Steuben County Library, and this is the first in a new videocast series called Library Connections, where I'm going to connect you with really great books and really cool movies. Thanks for watching. We're going to kick off each videocast with a listing of the top 5 titles on the New York Times fiction and nonfiction bestseller list, starting with fiction. And I'm going to read the title and the short synopsis for each book as we go along. So for this week, the first title is The 20th Victim by James Patterson and Maxine Petro. This is the 20th book in the Woman's Murder Club series. Lindsay Boxer looks into the murders of disreputable persons in 3 separate cities. Sounds engrossing. Number 2 for this week, Camino Wins by John Grisham. The line between fact and fiction becomes blurred when an author of thrillers is found dead after a hurricane hits Camino Island. Sounds like a good one to be penned by the master of thrillers, John Grisham, doesn't it? And number 3 for this week, If It Bleeds by Stephen King. This book includes 4 novellas, Mr. Harrigan's Phone, The Life of Chuck, Rat, and the title story, If It Bleeds. And it's bound to be a scary collection. Number 4, Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Nig. An artist upends a quiet town outside of Cleveland. That one's been on the bestseller list for a while, so if you haven't read it, now's a good time. I haven't read it either, so I've got it on my to-read list. And the 5th fiction bestseller for the week, Where the Crawdads Sing by Delilah Owens. In a quiet town on the North Carolina coast in 1969, a young woman who survived alone in the marsh becomes a murder suspect. Moving on to the New York Times nonfiction bestsellers of the week. Number 1, Untamed by Glennon Doyle. The activist and public speaker describes her journey of listening to her inner voice. Number 2, Becoming by Michelle Obama. The former First Lady describes how she balanced work, family, and her husband's political ascent. And incidentally, if you have a Netflix subscription, and I'm not promoting Netflix, I'm just saying if you do, there is a docuseries also called Becoming, which shows Michelle Obama on the book tour for the book, and it's quite interesting. You might want to check it out. Moving on to the 3rd nonfiction bestseller of the week. It's called Plague of Corruption by Judy Mikovits and Ken Heckenlively. The controversial virologist gives her account of her work over nearly 4 decades. Number 4, The Splendid and the Vile by Eric Larson. An examination of the leadership of the Prime Minister Winston Churchill. This particular book is set during the World War II era, and of course Churchill is the splendid, the vile is Adolf Hitler. And that's another one on my to-read list. And the 5th bestseller of nonfiction titles for this week, Educated by Tara Westover. The daughter of a survivalist who is kept out of school educates herself enough to leave home for university. And moving on to our critically acclaimed books of the week, we've got 2 of them. The first one is called Together, The Healing Power of Human Connection in a Sometimes Lonely World by Vivek H. Murthy, MD. And wow, what a mouthful of a title. So the book is about Dr. Murthy. Well, let me read it. Dr. Murthy is a former Surgeon General of the U.S. and a proponent of mindfulness. In Together, he discusses the importance of human connections to fight loneliness and offers insight into the benefits of practicing mindfulness and mindful meditation. That was recommended by NPR, and it's probably a really good read for the present time we're living through. Second book for the week is called Euphoria by Lily King, and this one is a novel. And this is the Boston Globe Review. Euphoria is Lily King's national best-selling breakout novel of three young, gifted anthropologists of the 1930s, caught in a passionate love triangle that threatens their bonds, their careers, and ultimately their lives. Inspired by events in the life of revolutionary anthropologist Margaret Mead, Euphoria is dazzling, suspenseful, brilliant, and exhilarating novel. By the Boston Globe, and the recommendation is also from the Kirkus Review. They thought the book was top-notch too, and it sounds like it. It's quite a drama. So moving on to our next section, we're going to talk briefly about streaming videos. These are 4 titles that if you haven't seen them, you might find them of interest. The first one is Asian Americans, and this is being shown on PBS and can be accessed for free through the PBS website. This new series takes a look at the history of Asian Americans in the U.S., starting with immigrants in the 19th century. May is Asian American and Pacific Island Heritage Month, so it's a perfect time to watch this docu-series and celebrate the great contributions Asian Americans have made to our culture. Second recommendation of the week is called Everything's Gonna Be Okay. This one is on Hulu and consists of 10 episodes. A young adult living on his own is suddenly sprung into the role of caregiver for his teenage sisters when their father's sudden death necessitates the girls moving in with him. Comedy abounds. So if you're in the mood for a comedy, that's a good one. Another good comedy and drama series, probably dramedy like MASH, is the Fleabag series, which currently has 2 seasons on Amazon Prime Video. A dramedy, Fleabag is a 30-ish woman living in London and doing her best to keep a stiff upper lip while navigating life's trials and tribulations. And finally, another docu-series. This one's called Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. It's a Netflix series, consists of 4 episodes. It's a short docu-series, and it focuses on the aforementioned ingredients and how the usage of those ingredients in cooking has shaped cuisine across the globe. On to the audiobook recommendations of the week, and we've got 3 of them. These were recommended in an article in the Washington Post. The narrator is supposed to be top-notch for all of these, and the stories are also top-notch. So Amnesty is set in a modern-day Australia and offers the story of Danny, an undocumented immigrant who tries with fierce determination to blend into mainstream Australian society. Book number 2 is Deacon King Kong, and it is set in 1969 Brooklyn. It follows the story of Sport Coat, a septuagenarian living in a housing project who loves the homemade booze, Deacon King Kong, made by his friend Hot Sausage. The author brings to life the neighborhood the men live in with great flair. And number 3, Rebel Cinderella, which is quite a workout of a book. It chronicles the life of Rose Pastor Stokes, who rose from poor immigrant to a wealthy wife, which allowed her the freedom to, in turn, evolve into a staunch feminist, a socialist, a communist, a pacifist, and a proponent of birth control, all in the early 20th century. So to say the lady had an eventful life would be an understatement. So those are 3 audiobooks you might want to check out. They are in the digital catalog. And on to the Odd Duck recommendations of the week. And I call this section Odd Duck because it could be any subject under the sun that is it's just sort of interesting. So I've got 2 Odd Duck recommendations this week, and they are both podcasts. For those who aren't familiar with the term podcast, it can be thought of as a pre-recorded radio show that is available on demand. And in the time of the coronavirus crisis, I think we'd all like a break from news of the pandemic. so neither of these podcasts should mention it except in passing. Podcasts can be found online and in your app store. And if you have a question about how to access podcasts, my email address, reimerl@stls.org, is seen at the bottom of the screen. So the first podcast is called Throughline, and it's by NPR. Throughline is a weekly podcast that focuses on historical events. Recent podcast subjects include the nuclear meltdown at 3 Mile Island, the Great Mississippi Flood of 1927, and a podcast titled The Stars that focuses on the history of astronomy. Throughline can be subscribed to through whichever app you use to listen to podcasts, including the one that comes with each smartphone by default, and you see the Throughline icon there on the left. Second podcast is called The Writer's Almanac, which is hosted by Garrison Keillor. The Writer's Almanac is a daily 5-minute podcast during which Mr. Keillor notes which famous personages were born on this day in history, and also notes a famous event that happened on this day in history. And then Mr. Keillor reads the poem of the day. The poems are from poets old and new, and always offer a good listen. And of course, Garrison Keillor has a great voice. It's very soothing. So the Writer's Almanac is a great podcast to listen to, and it too can be subscribed to from wherever you get your podcasts. The logo is seen on the left there, so check it out. And here is the cute cat photo section for the week. I have 3 cats. You will probably see Jules the most because he seems to be the most photogenic. And unlike the other 2, he doesn't get up and move while I'm trying to take his picture, usually. So here he is in a box I provided for him so that I could actually do some work and type on my computer. And he really, really loves that box. Have a question about this weekly videocast? Please do send me an email, reimerl@stls.org, and I will get back to you. I'm not going to read all these, but these are library resources you can access from home. The resources include the library's website, the digital catalog, reference desk online, and the different blogs that are hosted by staff members in different categories. So if you want to be entertained, or if you're looking for information, check out these resources. You can connect with the library too and pose questions via social media. The library has pages on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. And here's a list of references for this week. I'm not going to read them, but they're here if you wish to check out the articles. And at the very end of this podcast, there's going to be a short tech tip of the week. This one is on the digital catalog and how you access materials. And as an addendum to our tech tip of the week video, before us we see the ebook and audiobook checkout apps that you can use. Libby is for newer devices. That's the one seen on the left. The one on the right is called Overdrive. Mostly you would use that with Kindle Fire devices. And if you're still not sure which app you need, you can ask us. You can send an email to our tech coaches at diglit@stls.org, and we'll get back to you. Or you can check out the Overdrive help page seen in the photo on this slide, which is found at help.overdrive.com. Hi everybody, this is the tech tip of the week, and I'm going to talk briefly about how you access the digital catalog through a desktop or laptop computer. In other words, through a web browser. The one you see before you is Microsoft Edge, but any web browser will do the trick. The first step is to go to the library's website, found at ssclibrary.org, and that of course is what you see in front of you. And then the next step is to go to the Catalogs menu, which is in the middle of the page here. And then you click on Digital Catalog, which takes you into the digital catalog. Now, if you have a mobile device, there are apps for this. For newer devices, you want to use Libby, Libby. For an older device, you might want to use Overdrive, and those apps are discussed in a little more detail in this presentation itself. So getting back to the digital catalog, here we are. And to check things out, you simply need your library card number and your PIN. And then you look for something that you're interested in reading and that's available right now. We're looking at the collection Weekly New and Popular 20, and you'll notice all of the titles here say wait list at the top. And that means that there's a holds list for these books, just like there would be for print books in a library. And indeed, these are all ebooks. You want to make a note to look at the little symbol. If you see a little ebook down here, then you know the item is an ebook. If you see a little headset, it's an audiobook. And there are also a handful of streaming videos in the digital catalog. So if we scroll down here a little bit, here are some that are available. And if you wanted to check out one that's available, for example, The Women with Silver Wings here, you just click on the cover. And the description page comes up, which tells you a little more about the book itself. You can click the down arrow here to get the full summary. And if after you read that you're like, all right, this is the book for me, I want to read this, you just click borrow, at which point you will be prompted to enter your card number and your PIN. And we're going to go back to the digital catalog homepage here. These collections are updated on a regular basis. But before I close with this short tech tip, I want to turn your attention to two of the categories up here, subjects and collections. Subjects, that's just what it sounds like. You can look at all formats, ebooks, audiobooks, or videos, and then in different categories. Collections, these are curated collections for the different formats, ebooks, audiobooks, and videos. And then there are some special collections for kids, teens, general fiction, and mysteries. Let's look at the mystery one just a minute. And indeed, May is National Mystery Month, so here we have a collection of mysteries. And you can click See All to the right of a collection title if you want to look at all the titles in the collection. And that is a short Cliff Notes version of how to use the digital catalog. Thank you so much for watching our first Library Connections videocast, and I'll see you next week. Happy reading!